Hello, I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking and I'm at the Bottom Line Technologies Customer Conference. I'm talking to Chris Jackson of Lloyds. Chris, we were talking off camera about innovation and approaching innovation. Could you elaborate a bit more on that, please?
Yeah, of course. I think there's a lot being said about innovation at the moment. I think we are, as an industry, in a very exciting place. However, I guess from a client point of view, my advice would tend to be make sure that you use innovation in the right way and get out of it what you want. There's an awful lot of things going on, from mobile payments to PayPal and how we integrate some of these fintechs in. Where you need to be very careful, though, I think, is making sure that it works for you and not just jumping on the bandwagon for everything. I think as long as you stay curious and as long as you are engaged with the process and consulting with banks and providers properly, I think realistically what you need to do is be able to make a decision that works best for your business. And if it doesn't work for you, don't feel bad about being left behind. Don't feel bad about being the odd one out. You understand your business better than anybody else, and ultimately if you're making the wrong decision, you're not going to get any value from the innovation anyway. Case in point, I guess, would be something like checks, which has obviously been sort of seen as being left behind and kind of dead in the water. Nobody's really doing anything with it. And yet there are still so many people using checks that now we're looking at a future clearing model to bring checks back in and clear them through photographs. And realistically, you're suddenly in a place where something that's dead in the water is now seeing huge innovation, and actually no one's been left behind. And I think those people who stuck to their guns, worked out what they needed and worked out that that was right for their business in terms of cost, process, etc. They have in some ways gone against the grain, but they've been no less successful as a result. And I think that would kind of be the key message. Innovation's great, but make sure it works for you. Don't just jump in blindly.
So Chris, how would you describe the future role of banks and payments?
So it's an interesting one, if I'm honest. I've heard quite a lot of noise recently about, are banks in risk of being disintermediated? Are we at risk of becoming a utility? And I can certainly see potentially where that comes in. There's a lot of compliance, which is being seen to hamper us. There's a lot of fintechs coming in and kind of playing around the edges of what we do. That said, my view is that we won't be. I don't see us just remaining as utilities. I think banks will move slightly slower just because of the nature of the beast. But that said, I think if you look at the data that we sit on, the client base that we already have, the history and the trust that we've engendered within that as well, most fintechs would give their left arm to be in the same kind of position, I suppose. And so from my point of view, actually, we're sat on a huge amount of valuable information and data and clients from which we can leverage real innovation. Yes, it takes a little bit longer, and actually I think that the fintechs coming into this space should be really welcome from a bank's point of view, just on the basis that they will hopefully encourage the banks to move a little bit faster than they would otherwise. But realistically, if I look at even concepts like big data and utilising that information, most people do not have the kind of data that banks have to look at that. Similarly, if you look at the client base that we have, you're still in a position where we have much bigger market share than anybody else as well. And I think that clients are still engaging with us, we're engaging with clients. I think certainly within the retail end, if you look at innovation like mobile payments, some of the banks are leading the way there, and actually we're right at the cutting edge of innovation. I think when you come back into the corporate world, things do move slower because our corporate clients move slower. There are risks associated with corporate banking that have to be looked at and will move slower because you have compliance at both ends of the spectrum. But I think it will get there, and realistically, I would like to be in a position where innovation really continues and starts to pick up pace, and I think in the next 5 years you will see that. And quite frankly, if it doesn't, I'm going to be in a fairly boring job, so I'll be right at the forefront of making sure that we drive that, I suppose.